Growing up, I was always fascinated in prospect development, and the fact that some players can absolutely dominate the CHL, but never translate that game into the NHL. We're talking about defenders who could stop Connor McDavid on a nightly basis and never play a game outside the minors. And this phenomenon has always existed and will continue to exist. Because after researching for this video, I was honestly shocked about how many scoring leaders did not turn into star caliber players. In today's video, we're going to go over previous CHL scoring leaders and where they are today. So comment down below the most dominant CHL prospect your team has had, and press subscribe for some more awesome hockey content. Let's get straight into this video. We will start in 2006 with Alexander Raduloff. Drafted in 2005 by the Nashville Predators, Raduloff would have one of the most dominant CHL seasons of the past 2 decades, as he would put up an astounding 61 goals, 152 points in just 62 games. Insane. On top of winning the Memorial Cup with a dominating performance. And Raduloff would have a very interesting NHL career, to say the least, as he entered the Predators lineup and put up a very respectable 37 points in 64 games, played a full season the next year, and decided to, well, I'm just gonna peace out to Russia for the next 8 years. And so 8 years later, Raduloff would make his return to the NHL, and well, he's been a star. And during those 8 years in the KHL, he would dominate, which translated to him posting back-to-back 72-point seasons with the Dallas Stars. In this season, he has seen some pretty massive progression, as he only registered 34 points, but Raduloff is definitely a star. Next, in 2007, we have Patrick Kane. And in his draft year, Patrick Kane would also absolutely dominate, as he would register 62 goals, 145 points in only 58 games. And funny enough, 2007 was still a part of the old school hockey era. And so even with this incredible production, some people still doubted Kane's ability to translate his game into the NHL. And well, of course, Kane would prove all those haters wrong, as he broke in, won the Calder Trophy, 3 Stanley Cups, an Art Ross, a Ted Lindsay, and a Conn Smythe Trophy. On top of being one of the greatest, if not the greatest American player of all time. In 2008, we had Justin Azevedo. And the majority of you have probably never even heard this name, but on the Kitchener Rangers, with other names such as Kadri, Mikhail Bodker, Steve Mason, Azevedo would put up 124 points in 67 games. And even though Azevedo had that elite offensive tool set, he was only 5'7". And he was in his final year of CHL eligibility. And so after being drafted in the 6th round by the LA Kings, Azevedo would spend 4 years in the minors until he finally decided to call it quits and leave to Finland. Which is also a phenomenon in itself, as his elite goal scoring ability couldn't translate into the NHL, but he was able to establish an amazing career overseas. In 2009, we had Yannick Riendeau. And Riendeau, in his last year of CHL eligibility, would put up 126 points, including a very impressive 52 points in only 19 playoff games. However, Riendeau would be the first player on this list to go undrafted. And so heading into 2010, he would sign a contract with the Boston Bruins, but he would never see a single game in the NHL. And would actually spend the majority of his time in the ECHL, go to France, and is currently playing in the LNAH, which is a Quebec semi-pro league. Next, in 2010, we have Brandon Kozin. And weirdly enough, this was a down year in CHL production, as Kozin led the entire league with 107 points, edging out Tyler Seguin by only a single point. Regardless though, Kozin had a great season, but he had a big issue, as he was standing just shy of 5'8" and lacked physical strength, which would create a near impossible hurdle, as he ended up playing 5 seasons in the minors, got called up by the Leafs for 20 games in 2015, where he would put up 4 points, and after, he would depart to Russia. And Kozin would have a great career, and I feel like we're seeing a pretty significant trend here, as those players who could dominate in the CHL but couldn't bring that game into the NHL could manage to be a big time producer in Russia. In 2011, we had Lyndon Vay. Drafted in the 4th round by the LA Kings. Wait, hold up. Hold the phone. I'm just making the connection now, but the LA Kings in this stretch had the top CHL scorer 3 times in a 4-year span. which is honestly just insane because what are the odds that happens with late round draft picks? Pretty crazy. Bove would put up 116 points in 74 games, which would translate into very impressive AHL production, which resulted in a series of stints with the Kings. He got traded to the Canucks, ended up playing over 100 games, and today, well, he is a KHL superstar. And I'm honestly finding it just hilarious and fascinating how big time CHL producers translates into KHL stardom, as Lyndon Bay has been a point per game player in the KHL the past 3 seasons. Next, we have Brendan Cinnamon. Playing for Tri-City in 2012, Shinniman played on a wagon of a team, as 3 players on that team surpassed 100 points and another surpassed 80. And all this pretty insane production resulted in a 134 point season for Shinniman. And weirdly enough, Shinniman would actually go undrafted even after having 3 years of dominance. And so, in the 2012 offseason, Shinniman would sign with the Arizona Coyotes, where he would be a decent scorer in the AHL. He'd have a short stint with the Coyotes, and is currently playing with the Vaxio Lakers, so Elias Pettersson's ex-teammate, where he's been a stud. So again, another player who took advantage of a bigger role overseas. Next, we have Brendan Lepzig, who of course saw a monumental fall this year after his Instagram group chat was leaked. And Lepzig was an elite scorer in junior, as he put up 120 points in 2013 on an unbelievably dominant Winterhawks team, as they had 3 players who surpassed 110 points, and 9 players who passed or were hovering around point per game, including an 18-year-old Seth Jones. And so Lepzig would be drafted by the Predators, get traded to the Toronto Maple Leafs, where he developed into a great scorer at the AHL level. He saw 6 games in Toronto, was drafted by Vegas in the expansion draft, and of course, infamously basically ended his own NHL career, as hundreds of horrible comments were leaked about former teammates, wives, hookups, the whole 9 yards, which would earn himself a nice contract buyout and a one-way ticket to the Gulag as he signed a contract in the KHL. Next, we have Connor Brown. Drafted in the 6th round by the Toronto Maple Leafs, Connor Brown was blessed, as he was a highly skilled overager who just so happened to play on the same line as who else but Connor McDavid. And so Brown would have a heyday with McDavid and rack up 128 points. And the next season, Brown would enter the Marlies system and have a great year with 61 points, and he developed into a great bottom 6 scorer for Toronto. And last year he was traded to Ottawa, where he put up a career high 43 points this season. Next, we have Connor Garland. And Connor has a very interesting story, as he fell in his draft year even though he racked up an astounding 129 points, which would lead the entire CHL in scoring. But regardless, Arizona would be handed a gift in the 5th round. And so the next season, Garland would have another amazing season as he put up 128 points in 62 games, so he had back-to-back CHL scoring titles. And weirdly enough, unlike others on this list, Garland would not transition as well to the AHL, as he had some mediocre seasons, but that may just have to do with the coaching system. But this season, Garland is back on track, as he put up 22 goals, 39 points in 68 games, and Garland looks like a potential 30-goal scorer who miraculously fell to the 5th round. Next, we have Sam Steele. Drafted in the 1st round by the Ducks, Steele would explode the season after his draft year, as he would put up a very impressive 131 points. And since then, Steele's bounced back and forth from the AHL, but Sam is a promising talent who has some great upside. 22 points in 65 games this season, and weirdly enough is the only 1st round pick from this decade to lead the CHL in scoring. Next we have, and stay with me here, Jaden Schwartz. Very interesting name. His name wasn't listed on the pronunciation guide I usually use, so sorry, I tried. And Jaden had a very prolific rise in the WHL, as he went from scoring 4 goals in his draft year going undrafted to scoring an astounding 70 goals, 129 points in only 72 games. And a 70 goal year is just insane. And Jaden would translate his production really well into the AHL, and he's been progressing extremely well, and we'll probably see some time in the NHL in the next 2 seasons. And finally, in 2019, we have Jason Robertson. Drafted in the 2nd round in 2017, Robertson fell what probably would have been a top 10 pick to number 39 due to suspect skating. because in his draft year he put up 42 goals and 87 points. And in 2019 he would progress to 117 points. And Jason is actually the older brother of Leafs prospect Nicholas Robertson. So they have some pretty good hockey blood in their family. But unlike Nick, Jason is actually 5 inches taller and plays a much more physical game. And this season Jason had a tremendous rookie season in the AHL as he put up 47 points in 60 games. And just to recap what we saw, 7 out of the 14 players ended up leaving to Russia or Sweden. 2 players are NHL stars, 1 player never made it past the ECHL, and only 3 players were previous first round picks, which is pretty interesting. But anyways guys, has your team ever had a dominant CHL prospect, and if so, what happened? And press subscribe for some more awesome content. I'm going to be announcing the jersey giveaway winner next video, so stay tuned for that. The support this month, just this whole year guys, has just been insane, so let's keep up this momentum. I hope all you guys are doing well. See you guys later.